So Viking Season 4 has come to an end, and I've done 2 videos on what I have perceived to be 2 really big historical inaccuracies and sort of deviations from the norm. One on Ivar, and I think the direction that they've taken Ivar is completely useless. I've already discussed in my video on Ivar why he would be completely ineffectual as a warrior, and 2, why a chariot would be absolutely awful in fighting in a British landscape on that in that particular type of warfare. Just wouldn't be effective. The second one we had was about Bjorn. Now, literally, Bjorn goes to somewhere in Spain, looks across into thing and goes, "Ooh, look, there's the Mediterranean. Oh, better go back and deal with something else." And it's just like, oh. So my overall view of Season 4 is that it was rushed. It has been horribly rushed. If you go and read about the history of the Great Viking Invasion, and particularly the initial setup of the Danelaw, and how England was, different kingdoms, and why even when the Danelaw was set up, these kingdoms didn't unite to push out the invaders. Because if you look at the English kings we've only seen the King of Northumbria and the King of Wessex, and you'd think that those were the only kings. Now, there were many more kingdoms in Britain that existed that were important, but we've never seen the power dynamic that was going on between these 2 kingdoms. Remember, it was because of the Great Viking Invasion that smashed all these other kingdoms and pretty much left Wessex alone, that Wessex was able to then take over the rest of these kingdoms. And we've seen nothing done about that. Now, I know that the series is called Vikings, and the main focus is on the Vikings, but you need to see that power dynamic and how even the Vikings played the other kingdoms off against each other. But we've never seen that. So I think that was a wasted opportunity in this season. And next season we know we're going to East Anglia, which again is a kingdom we've never heard discussed of, but was an important power player at that time. Mercia, the biggest of the kingdoms, had a king at that time. Never discussed. So this was all rushed massively. You didn't see the Vikings taking of York, which would be a major thing. We saw them take out Northumbria, and we saw them take out Wessex, but we never saw them, what about the other kingdoms? The other kingdoms would have reacted as well. And you then have at the end, well, no spoilers really, but you then have the splitting of the Brotherhood, because each one now is going off to do their own, each individual thing. And this comes to the crux of one thing that has been, I think, talked about a lot of the time when discussing Vikings, is that the character that we've been following for the past 3 seasons had been Ragnar. Ragnar in this season dies, not a big spoiler. And this torch is then meant to be passed to, Lagertha, because she's now got a fan base. You've got Ivar, Ubba, and Bjorn, who we are meant to be following next in this series. But they aren't good characters. And why is that? Because the season has been rushed, and there has been a lot of skipping over it. Now, I'm good and glad that Bjorn's going back to the Mediterranean. at least we'll get to see that in some way, shape or form, but I can guarantee that's going to be rushed as well. So I really do not have much hope for the 5th season of Vikings. I hope that they don't continue to rush it, because the Great Viking Invasion itself is a massive piece of that particular part of, English, UK history, and it has just been glossed over as if it just, happened in a weekend. But that's the situation of where it is, and that's what happens when you rush things and miss out on a lot of things. But I think the Great Viking Invasion itself should have been solely an entire series. And as I've said in my previous 2 videos about this, the rest of this series should have been Bjorn exploring the Mediterranean and Ivar and Ubba basically preparing for the Viking invasion, convincing the rest of the Viking chiefs to join them on this quest for revenge and conquest, which is what it was, because there wasn't enough land. Why wasn't it when... And we're getting into the topic, but that's what it should have been. And then you should have had season 5 of the first, the last episode should have been the invasion fleet setting off, and the next episode should have been their landings, their first couple of interactions, making a plan of action of what they were going to do, how the kingdoms of the UK were reacting to this. It's a massive bit of, I think, wasted potential. And one of the things I've certainly said I would love to see done is a actual full-on documentary just examining this invasion itself, because again, it's a really interesting, fascinating piece of history. So go out and I can't remember what the book's name was, but I'll leave it linked below if I can remember it. Go out and read the history for itself, because if anything, as I've said, continue about this, it will hopefully bring more people into reading about the history of the Vikings, the history, the old history of the UK, particularly, and that's never a bad thing. Gaining that knowledge, or people going out to find out, hey, I like the look about this guy, I'm going to read up about him, see what what the real historical version of what was this guy was about, which is a good thing. So I encourage that to a lot of people. Go out and read history, read actual books. Now I'm not going to lie, a lot of those books are really, really dry, but that's history for you. But that's a video for another time, I think.